Welcome to another episode of the After School Club with myself, Max Pembleton. Today we want to welcome Olivia Shipstone. Olivia is the owner of OCS Financial Planning, and she is an expert when it comes to the teacher's pension and the go-to financial advisor in education. Olivia, thank you so much for joining us. How are we doing?
Yeah, I'm all right, thank you. How are you?
Good, very well, thank you. Very well. I want to start off this conversation with actually something quite interesting that I've never done before.
Okay.
Your bio on LinkedIn. Okay, so I've got it here in front of me. I'm just going to read it out.
Go on.
Female financial advisor. Fresh approach to help you secure your financial future. Simple, heart-centered planning for individuals and business owners. Empowering women to take control of their finances. And most importantly, mum of two. Love it. Really good. Yeah, really, really good. And I think, it perfectly obviously sums up what you do, which we'll get into in just a second. Mm-hmm. But can you tell us, the emphasis on women within that statement? Just talk us through that and how that sort of came about.
Yeah. Well, in the UK, there's actually quite a big, what we call a gender wealth gap. You would have had the gender pay gap. And there's a big gender wealth gap. And for me, it's really important to try and empower women to be confident in the decision making around money.
Yep.
Now, that's not to say that I don't work with men, actually. I'm probably still 50-50 with my client bank, men and women.
Yep.
But it's encouraging them to join in that conversation. So if I'm meeting a couple, even though, let's say, the male's contacted me to have a financial review, I make sure that both parties are in the room. Because as much as it is his, it's hers, and vice versa.
Yeah.
So I think that's really important. And also just empowering them and making them heard as well.
Yeah.
Knowing that their finances are just as important as their male counterpart or something along those lines. So
yeah.
I think just generally the narrative in the UK, quite often when you're thinking about investments or pensions, is quite steered towards males.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that bringing women into the conversation is a starting point for everyone, really.
Yeah, absolutely. And do you think women are probably less confident when it comes to talking about money and finances and planning? And I don't want to generalize here, but a lot of the time I think men sort of take the lead on that traditionally and historically. Am I right?
No, you're right. Yeah. So one of the most common comments I probably get is, "Oh, my husband sorts that out," or something along those lines. And absolutely fine. But really, if we take a step back, if your husband wasn't here, something happened to him, it's then on you, and you've obviously gone through the hardest time in your life. It's really important that you have that kind of confidence to understand that, obviously continue your life or whatever that looks like. And I think it just empowers them, and I think it gives both that individual financial well-being, but also the husband financial well-being, and knowing that, my wife, for example, if we're just looking at a husband and wife scenario, my wife's looked after, but also my wife's confident, and because ultimately they're doing it for them and their household. That's why it's important for everyone to understand at all points, really, I think.
Well, I love it, and I love the emphasis you're putting on it. So
thank you.
Thanks for sharing that.
Pink blazer as well.
Yeah, love it. Okay, and obviously we've briefly touched up on it here, just within the introduction. But can you really break down for us exactly what it is you do on a day-to-day basis?
Yeah. So generically speaking, I'm a financial advisor, financial planner. Mm-hmm. But what I do is just help individuals, households and business owners really understand their position, but most importantly, their why. So a lot of kind of financial goals and their why they're working ultimately to earn money to achieve something. Mm. And understanding their why and their goals and how we can help them achieve that, because a lot of them do come back around to finances, be it retiring at a certain age, be it helping the kids at university, getting on the property ladder, working their way up the property ladder, marriage, all the different kind of time places in the timeline of their life quite often come with a financial cost. And it's really helping them understand how they can achieve that, really. Yeah. And hopefully I can help them along the way and build strategies for different kind of goals, really, and objectives. Yeah. But that's really what I like to do, and all that kind of holistic planning.
Yeah, great. Yeah. And, I think whether we like it or not, you can't really avoid finances, can you? They're going to be there no matter how little or how much you have. and just to understand, I guess, which direction you want to go in and how certain decisions are going to help you is really, really important.
Yeah. You also don't think it's necessarily about how little or how much you have. It's what you need and what's right for you. And that's like also what's really important, to make sure that it's personal.
Yeah.
Because what's right for your best mate is not necessarily right for you. You have a completely different lifestyle, a completely different standard of living. So what you enjoy spending your money on might be different to that other person.
Yeah.
So I think that's also kind of really important, to try and just focus on yourself, stay in your own lane, because then I think you'll get a lot more financial well-being as well, rather than that comparison being the thief of joy and all of that stuff.
And I'm really, really interested, actually. You know, we spend a lot of time going into schools and actually connecting with the pupils as well as the staff, and I'm interested to know how you got into it, because I don't very often speak to students that say, I want to be a financial advisor. So can you tell us, how did you get into becoming a financial advisor, and when did you realise that's what I want to do?
Yeah. So actually it brings us back round to kind of full circle why I work with a lot of teachers, and obviously why we're having this discussion today. All of my family are teachers. So my mum's a teacher, dad is a teacher, my twin sister's even a teacher.
Wow.
And my degree was business with French, and I worked at HSBC in Paris for a year.
Oh, amazing.
But Paris bit was amazing. The corporate back office was boring.
Yeah.
And I hated it, but I still loved the numbers.
Yeah.
So I said to my mum, it's fine. I don't want to do that. I want to be a maths teacher.
Right.
Mum was like, no, Olivia, it's not for you. And obviously she's been through it. She's been a teacher her whole life. And she also knows me, my personality. And I was like, what do I do then? Because I definitely don't want to work just for a big corporation and be just another number, doing the same thing day in, day out, kind of keying away numbers. And her chair of governors because she was a head teacher, chair of governors at the time was financial advisor.
Right.
And all of his kids wanted to be teachers. So she'd let them do work experience at her school.
Okay.
And so she was like, come on, repay the favour.
Yeah.
I don't want Olivia to be a teacher.
Yeah.
Come on, can she do some experience for you? And he was like, yeah, amazing. I'll hopefully show her what we do. And he had another business partner. And I said to my mum, that's great. I kind of knew Simon was his name a bit. I kind of wanted to really work it out for myself. So I said, I would love to do it, but if I could work under his business partner, just to kind of have that fresh eyes, no kind of matching with obviously I didn't know his business partner at all. And I did that for the summer before my final year at uni. And they offered me a full-time job.
Amazing.
I was like, no, sorry, but got to go back to uni for another year. But I kept in touch, and then I had started that as soon as I finished uni. Now, that was just kind of doing the administration side of things, but I always knew that because I'd experienced it, wanted to kind of work myself up to be a financial advisor.
Okay.
So I then went through the exams over a course of a year and became qualified to give financial advice. And I was quite lucky because I enjoyed it so quickly and early on that I knew pretty quickly that I wanted to do it. I think growing up, I always knew I wanted to work with numbers. Ironically, I work with numbers, but don't do any the maths really.
I was going to say, so, you obviously spoke about being a maths teacher, or becoming a maths teacher. Yeah. In a way, are you still teaching maths, or do you not see it like that? Yeah,
I do. Kind of a lot of the calculations that I do will obviously fundamentally come back to a maths calculation. A lot of Excel spreadsheets do those for you now, though, and software. But that's also really important, because part of how I like to work with clients is being jargon free. So I do go back down to what that actual calculation is in the background, and we do dissect it quite a lot and understand it.
And it can be confusing, Excel. Can be pretty confusing.
I don't really deal with it, but I just hope that the formulas are right.
But you're there to explain it for when you need to explain it to someone in simple terms, because I think a lot of what might put people off that haven't necessarily spoke to advisors before is the fear of a language that they may not necessarily understand. But what you're saying is you break that down, put it really simply for people, so actually it's very, very clear.
Hopefully,
yeah. Good. And can you just touch upon for us, you mentioned you had a year of becoming qualified so you could advise on finances. What does that year look like, and how do you actually become qualified as a financial advisor? Because to my knowledge, there's several layers to it, and some people are doing their qualifications for years. So can you just tell us how that works, that side of things, please?
So in the UK, the minimum you need is something called a diploma in financial planning, to be able to advise. Years previously, you didn't even need that, but now obviously the regulation is that you need to have a diploma in financial advice to advise. And the reason I took a year is because I was working the job at the same time, not advising, but kind of like the background technical side of things. You can do that a lot quicker. It's simply some kind of, they're about 6 exams, if I remember correctly. Some of them are multiple choice and some of them are, one of them is an essay-based kind of exam. And that's become diploma qualified. Now, I think as well, financial advice, it's all about building relationships. And I think that you can have the diploma, but I think really getting out there, shadowing people, and speaking to people is really where you develop like your more personable skills, because obviously they go hand in hand. You need your diploma to be able to give advice and understand that and understand what you're talking about. But also obviously you need to build those relationships as well. Now, I'm actually a chartered financial planner and a fellow of the Personal Finance Society, which is the highest qualification that you can get in my industry. So it's kind of chartered and fellow about 2 steps up. So there's a few more exams that I had to do for that. But that's obviously up to you whether you want to do those exams or not. I do think it helps you with the obviously credibility. And also for me, I'd like to hopefully have as much information as I can possible to be able to advise my clients and help them as much as possible. So,
I guess the more knowledge you've got, the more you can advise people, the better advice you can give, and so on. So great. Okay, sounds good. And you currently are you operating across the whole of the UK, just the East Midlands?
Yeah, so obviously I have clients throughout the whole of the UK, but typically a lot of my clients I've kind of are from the East Midlands originally, and they might kind of move for work or something like that. However, now as well as I've kind of built over the years my relationships with my clients, clients also refer me to their friends, so they might not be in the East Midlands. So I do work with clients throughout the whole of the UK, but the kind of the core bank of most of my clients do sit in the East Midlands. But you can find me going up to Aberdeen sometimes. And down to like Reading. So
it could be anywhere. And whereabouts did you grow up and go to school?
Grew up in Leicester.
Too far.
No, so somewhere called Syston. Grew up there. Went to school at Bishop Ellis. Primary school, Catholic school in Bermiston. Near Asda is what most people say. And then I went to secondary school in Leicester, city of Leicester, so English Martyrs.
I know. And how was your school experience? You know, for you, just speaking as a pupil, how was your school experience?
I love school, but I'm a social person as well, so I love the social aspect of school. And I loved learning stuff, and I don't know, maybe it's because I came from a family of teachers as well. I appreciated the kind of progressing in school, and it could help me later in my life and stuff like that. But I had really fond memories of school and really enjoyed it. I have some really good friends that I still obviously speak to now. So enjoyed my time at school.
Great. And a question I always like to ask, simply because, you know, it's my sector and I've really got a passion for it. Was there someone at school, you know, a teacher or a mentor or a leader that actually really had a positive impact on you in school and helped, I guess, guide your career where it is today, really?
Not the one that comes to the top of my head.
There's not a right or wrong. I just always like to ask that. You know,
if anyone's listening that taught me, it was great, but there's no one that kind of comes out of me.
Okay, cool. And, you know, sticking on the school topic, which is a big reason why we wanted to speak to you today, your focus and a lot of who you work with are schools, people from schools, education professionals. Just tell us, you know, how do you... I don't know if this is the right term, so correct me if I'm wrong. How do you target those people? Do they naturally come to you? I know a lot of it's word of mouth, but how do you go about focusing on the education sector and people within education?
Good question. So I think now most of it is word of mouth. I don't kind of contact anyone directly myself, but I'm always obviously open if people want to contact me or pick my brain sort of thing. But it started off, so I kind of started building relationships, particularly with MAT, so Multiacademy Trust, their kind of leadership team I had a lot of connections with. And it's one of those things, and you probably experience yourself, the kind of sector, most people know each other. And that's really how it's kind of developed into kind of being a bit of an expert in the field. And that's it really. So obviously my approach to work with education professionals, like I said, I work with people in all different backgrounds, but the kind of added benefit of me having that in-depth knowledge, particularly around their pension schemes, be it the teacher's pension scheme or the local government pension scheme, it adds into that kind of bigger picture of holistic planning. So whilst pupils' planning will have other things outside of the pension scheme, that's going to be a big chunk of it, particularly when you're looking at retirement or something like that. So I think that's where the conversations have started with individuals in the sector. And then also just the kind of understanding of it as well. So the teacher's pension scheme, let's say, is one of the biggest, after the local government pension scheme is the second biggest one in the UK. There's over like 2 million members in the teacher's pension scheme. So if someone's trying to contact the teacher's pension scheme, it could be hard work. And a lot of people do it in their half term. So like the queue is really long on the phone. And so just having potentially someone else that they can contact, even if it's just a generic question and not a personalised one for them, then hopefully I can help them with understanding their position and their pension a bit more.
Great. And you said you work with Multiacademy Trust. How does that work? Do you go and speak to large groups of education professionals within that trust and then, I guess, simply advise on what you do and how you can help?
Yeah, so I do mainly seminars. So I'll do like a teacher's pension seminar, let's say. And that will be from discussions within like the trust, how that works, whether it be kind of each head invites me individually into their trust, or if they're smaller trusts, they might cluster a few schools that are close by together and say Olivia's going to be at this school on this straight after school as well, so people don't have to wait around. And if you want to come and learn more about the teacher's pension scheme, come along and listen to the seminar kind of thing. So a lot of them are, seminars is how I kind of hopefully provide that more in-depth knowledge around the teacher's pension scheme, and then the teachers have an opportunity to follow up with me afterwards as well.
Great. And I'm not going to ask you to do a seminar right here, right now, but it would be really, really good to know, what sort of things do you put over in the seminar, and can you give us a bit of information and some specifics about the teacher's pension and what people should be aware of if they're not already?
We've got to be here a while now.
We've got time.
The teacher's pension schemes, I'm just thinking of like we kind of order the seminar. So first of all, we go through just being in the teacher's pension scheme. So that's the pension based stuff. So first of all, I think the thing that most people want to understand is their contribution. That's the thing they see coming out of their pay slip every month. So we go through that. But then I think as well, it's really important for them to understand that the employer is also paying to the teacher's pension scheme.
So their contribution, is that their choice, what they contribute?
Their contribution will be a percentage based on their salary. So it's salary banded, and it's percentage based on where they fall in those salary bands. That salary banded element does change every April as well. So I do say to people, if you're kind of on a cusp of a band, you could just say yourself going into a different percentage kind of contribution if you had a pay rise or if the bands shift. And then so that's anything up to 11.7% for the highest band. Now, the employer pays in at the moment, I think it's just under 25%. It's going.
And that's going to increase.
Going up to just under 29%. If I got that right. So
it's a great contribution.
And it's something that they love as well, because they're like, well, my employer's paying in more than me. That's quite nice to know. So it's really important, because obviously that's the first thing they say. But then I think then going into how it works, how it's changed over the years, because it's changed quite a lot. And most importantly, what that means for them at retirement, about their benefits that they're going to get out. And I think that's the bit that I really can't try and emphasize, because it's really easy to say, oh, it's coming out of my pay slip now, I could do with this money in my month-to-month pay. But ultimately, they will have a goal of retiring at some point. And without a pension to be able to fund that retirement, they will kick themselves. So say as long as it's affordable, and then I'll always encourage everyone to stay in the scheme. And like I said, hopefully they'll reap the benefits of it. retire or start working.
Yeah, well, close to 29% sounds
Yeah.
pretty good.
Yeah.
Sounds good.
So then I go through, it's like I said, the changes and understanding that really, and about what different things mean for them, but also as well, alongside that are other benefits like that you can see within your kind of working career. So things such as death in service that's integrated into the scheme, which means that if you were to die whilst being employed by that employer, 3 times your salary will pay out.
Wow.
And then also there's a sick pay arrangement as well. Again, some MATs have caveats on this, but generically speaking, it is once you've kind of been in the scheme for 5 years, I think it is, you get 6 months full pay, 6 months half pay if you're off long-term sick.
Right.
I think as well, the other thing that I always kind of speak about, like I said, because a lot of the time I like to focus on household financial planning, is whilst they might be really happy with that, it's really important for them to understand what the person within the household has got with their employer, because if they're not in kind of one of the main public sector schemes like the NHS, local government, teachers' pension, it's very unlikely they have those replicated benefits. It's like you might be okay and actually on track for what you want to achieve, but if you want to achieve it together, you need to make sure you both are, and that's sometimes where some conversations start there as well.
Okay, great. And we've got a lot of listeners actually will be from the education sector, working in schools, whether it be qualified teachers, unqualified teachers, teaching assistants, you name it, whatever's in the school, they'll be on our database.
Okay.
How do you usually find that people working within the sector, how much knowledge do they usually have of this kind of stuff before you speak to them? Or is it kind of, they don't really know much, generally speaking?
Yeah, I think it's hard because it has changed so much. So they might have understood it previously, but the change meant that they kind of lost track of where they are.
Yeah.
So I don't think it's any fault of anyone's that don't have that understanding. I mean, I've got to keep up as well, and that's my day-to-day job.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just about kind of making sure that you empower yourself to know what everything means, because wherever you are in your career as well, whether that's you just started out or you are looking to retirement. Now, often more people do start thinking about these things the closer you get to retirement. But there's a big argument to say, obviously, the earlier you start thinking about it and consider options, the more choices you will have later on. Absolutely.
Yeah.
So it's really difficult because I don't think it's I think there's always change. And it's not just the teacher's pension that's changing, legislation changes, regulation, that it's like, you've got to keep up, and that's sometimes where kind of an expert in the field can really help out.
Great. And do you, as part of your network and working with you, will you regularly update your clients on the changes that are happening? How do you do that? Is it email? Is it in-person meetings? Notifications? How does it work within your business?
Yeah. So if a client starts to work with me longer term, we have at least an annual review. Okay. So we'll always kind of touch base if there's been any changes that affects them personally, because also you've got to remember some changes might not affect everyone. So just obviously it affects them personally. And then there's other kind of things with regards to just generic changes. So for example, there was a change just last October in the teachers' pension scheme, which then meant that a lot of the people I work with already, so Trust, for example, have asked me to go back in and to redo the seminar with the updated information. There's also different kind of allowances that are available that different people might trigger. And normally I've kind of got a catalogue of people who tend to kind of hit those criteria. And so I do reach out to them every so often when I know that's going to need to be updated or a tax return needs to be done.
Yeah. And what I really love is on your LinkedIn, I often see it pop up, and you give, real life scenarios of things that have happened, obviously without naming names and things like that. But real life scenarios so people can actually understand why it would benefit them working with you, I guess. And I really like that. So for anyone listening that is interested or maybe hasn't thought of it yet, wants to start, engaging in those conversations, how can they get in touch with you, and how would that work?
Yeah, so I'm a big LinkedIn fan, as you just mentioned. I do post daily on LinkedIn, so you just kind of want to see more about what I do or just understand, because hopefully a lot of it is just education. Feel free to follow me on LinkedIn. If you wanted to reach out and have a more kind of personalised review, then absolutely people can contact me, and we can sit down together and have a discussion about what that might look like, even if it just starts off at discovery call, really. Great.
And have you got a website people can have a look at to see what you do?
Yes, so my business is OCS Financial Planning. So the website is www.ocsfinancialplanning.com.
Perfect. Thank you. And I wanted to also ask about misconceptions. Do you think there's many misconceptions that people have when they think about teachers' pensions or pensions in general when it comes to finances? What misconceptions do you usually come across when speaking to new people?
A whole range of stuff. Teacher's pension. Teacher's pension is amazing. It's like gold dust. Private employers can't offer it, can't match anything near there.
Yeah.
And I think some of the misconceptions, particularly around a recent change, is that it's what has changed is for better or whether it will always be better. And I think part of the conversations I have with my individuals is that, again, it's not a hard and fast rule to say that this route is better for you than that route. And that's why it's really important to dig deep into what their personal position is, their circumstances, what they want to achieve, and then decide which route is better. I guess that is a misconception that what is right for my friend, or she retired 2 years ago, I'm going to do the same. You might have lived completely different lives. And both if
probably have
work. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
I mean, I've got a twin sister, we're completely different, so.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So, yeah, you do come across those kind of things, but it's your job, I guess, to advise them on, actually, this is what you should be looking at for yourself. And these are the steps that I would advise in order for you to get from A to B, for example.
Yeah, exactly. And then, so I guess another misconception is that part of the teacher's pension scheme, you'll kind of have what they call a pension age.
Right.
So that'll be anything from 60 to your state pension age at different times of depending on what scheme you're in at different years.
Yeah.
Complicated, I guess.
Yeah.
But if you retire any time before what that age is on that part of the teacher's pension, is that you have what you call an early retirement factor. Now, people do refer to them as penalties, and I really encourage people not to refer to them as penalties, because the reason why it's been reduced for X amount of years, you're retiring earlier, is because it will be paying for longer. So they've got to obviously take that into account, that we're going to reduce your pension by X because we're paying it for X amount of more years.
Yeah.
Now, again, the personalised conversation I have with all of my clients is what's going to be best for you. And the conversation doesn't necessarily then come down to just the money and the figure and the pension amount they're going to get. The wider conversation, for me, what I think is really the important conversation is when they're younger, fitter and healthier, to enjoy that money. Yeah. Because I've seen, unfortunately, not too many, but I know a lot of my colleagues in the industry and just family members work really hard because they want to carry on working until their retirement age, so they don't have an early retirement factor. Yeah. And they only live 2 years beyond that. Whereas they could have retired 5 years early. Enjoyed it. Either live to that or even live longer because they've had 5 years less of stress and all of the other things that come with working. Yeah. And so I think that's kind of the bigger part of the conversation is about your personal circumstances and what you want out of life, I guess.
Yeah, bit of a life lesson really, to enjoy your time whilst you're here as well and not just work the whole time. So yeah, something that we're all working on, I think.
Yeah, easier said than done.
Yeah, it is. I don't want to put you on the spot, but I want to ask you about a specific example with a teacher that you've helped. So, you've started working with them, and just tell us a little bit about the scenario and how you've helped a specific teacher, so we can have a specific example, if that's okay.
Yeah, that is putting me on the spot because I have to think. But again, generically speaking, quite often it is all about retiring earlier than what they thought they would be able to. And that's by doing the calculation. So one thing on the teacher's pension website is when you log in and you can see your benefits, it's only what you've accrued to date. So a lot of the time I'm doing projections forward for clients that they wouldn't be able to obviously obtain otherwise, just from understanding the scheme. Yeah. And so I get to help them kind of work that out. And then also what I do with all of my clients as well is some kind of what I call cash flow modelling. And it's more of a visual side of things where you can see each year, if you were to stop working, how that kind of standard of living, i.e. the cost of your living, would be met. And that might be a combination of pension and other savings and investments you may have. If we're having those conversations let's say 15, 20 years out of the point that you want to retire, and we can see currently there's actually a bit of a shortfall, we can start those conversations earlier on about what do we need to implement to bridge that gap, and whether that's be different strategies such as other pensions or other investments or anything like that. It's helping them do that as well. I'm just trying to think now. I did think of something, but I forgot what I was talking.
You let me know when it comes back to you. Is fine. But again, something that I've touched upon in a previous podcast, actually, the whole concept of technology, and there's so much out there now on the internet, and I guess if you need an answer for something, you just Google it and it comes up. What is the importance of speaking to someone like yourself, having that person there to go to if you've got questions, rather than, couldn't I just do all this on the internet?
Yeah, I think sometimes a little bit of information can be very dangerous. And this comes down to like complexities of legislation around investments and pensions in the UK. So say, for example, pensions, you can have like, you might Google how much can I put into a pension every year, and the annual allowance in the UK is 60,000, but the actual annual allowance is 60,000 or your total pensionable earnings, whichever one is lower. So if you're only on £40,000 a year, you'll only be able to put into your £40,000 into your pension. That gets even more complex through the teacher's pension scheme. So what you physically pay in, not you, but the teacher, as the percentage that I mentioned earlier on, and what the employer pays in, those two percentages added together don't make up their annual allowance. The teacher's pension scheme, the actuaries, all the clever people in the background have to do that calculation if you want to find out. It's not kind of, I'm paying in 10%, just generic numbers, I'm paying in 10%, the employer's paying in 10%, 20% of my salary is what I'm using of my annual allowance. That's not the case for the teacher's pension. So it's just things like that, and that's just one example of how a little information can be dangerous. Because if you breach your annual allowance, you've got to start paying tax on what you've paid into that pension. So that's something obviously you don't want to do if you didn't need to do it.
It's the same with investments and stuff like that, right? Like, you could advise people on, actually, I think you should do this, whereas I could just go online, download an app and follow what a so-called expert is doing or something like that. And I think it's very, very dangerous if you haven't got that knowledge or an expert to advise you on what happens to your money, because I think there's so many scenarios where people think, I can make a quick buck, and all of a sudden it's gone.
If it's too good to be true, it normally is.
Usually is. Good advice. And have you got any areas that you would suggest that people can go and get reliable information and reliable knowledge? Any sites that you would usually use or anything like that?
Personally, I don't use the sites because obviously just my qualifications and working day in, day out, but just the government-based ones. So if you're looking at pensions, pension-wise, if you're looking into the teacher's pension scheme or the local government pension scheme, those individual sites have a wealth of information on there. And it's just sometimes it is like just digging around for what you kind of want to find out. The information is out there, and I think just rely on reputable sources. So, like I said, the direct scheme or something that's government backed.
And if you're not sure, check with yourself.
Happy to help.
Perfect. Can you tell us a little bit about any changes that we need to be aware of in the education sector or in the finance world in general that are maybe coming up in the near future?
Well, if I knew that, I'd be a very rich woman. There's obviously twice a year in the UK there's a budget, and ultimately that's where legislation can change. But if we look back at the last year, and particularly again where our conversations have kind of originated from previously, is there has been quite a lot of changes in the teachers' pension scheme and the local government pension scheme as well. And that's all down to the underlying calculations that are in the scheme. Now, there's something called the McLeod judgment. Don't know if you've heard of that.
I've not, no.
So the McLeod judgment is a court case. So do you know, like you have McLeod versus Smith? It's effectively where the names come from. Where people went to court to argue that the changes in some definitive defined benefit schemes, which is what the teachers' pension and local government pension schemes are. The changes that happened in around 2014, 2015 disadvantaged people either near retirement or in the future. And they argued this case, and obviously it was ruled in their favour, which then in turn meant that those schemes had to kind of rewind that change that happened in 2015 up until 2022. So that rewind, and the teachers' pension scheme, just because it's the one I most frequently talk about, is called something called a remedy period. So people might have been hearing people talking about remedy period, and what happens is for those years that between 2015 up until April 2022, they would have been what they call the career average earnings scheme. Most people, unless they were really close to retirement. So most people would have been in that scheme. Now, what happens in this remedy period is that effectively those years are reconverted back to whatever final salary scheme they started in.
Right.
And that the career average earnings scheme now it's been from 1st of April 2022, obviously for the rest of their career going forward. So that's one of the big changes that a lot of people have come to me because they've had the information. But again, it's just digesting that information. What does that mean for them? Sometimes they have to make decisions now about some of their benefits, but most people still get that option at retirement to work out which benefit would be better for them in the kind of the rewind element. Or if they weren't rewound, would it have been better for them?
Okay. Yeah. Sounds like a lot to take in.
Yeah. It's really hard for me to explain just like speaking as well. It'll be like nicely on the
presentation.
On the presentation when I do the seminar, but hopefully that's come across. Hopefully they can understand a little bit from that.
Yeah, but I guess that's the point as well of speaking to you, you know, because it can be complicated and you're there to give best advice and best practice. So, yeah, thank you for summing that up very quickly there for us. And then just personally, before we get into some quick fire questions, I just want to ask about your top tips and what do you maybe do on a day-to-day to save a little bit here and there, and what advice would you give to other people in order to save a little bit financially? What are your top tips?
Well, I think first of all, live within your means obviously is the biggest one,
yeah,
and that comes down to obviously a few things that I mentioned on like comparing, and also don't try and keep up with the Joneses. Like this society today is just like flashy this,
social
flashy that.
media and...
I would rather have like all my clothes pretty much what they are anyway from Primark, a car that I'm running down, but I get to retire at like 60. Like for me personally, that's my goal. So you choose when you want to spend your money. I think as well, another tip. So actually one of my friends mentioned this to me the other day, that she actually lives by this wall. And I thought it was actually really good. But if there's anything that is more kind of on the luxury end for her, she has to save up to buy it twice over before she actually commits to it. And that gives the discipline. And also time as well, because a lot of like buys will be impulse buys. And then later on, you sleep on it. And sleep on it and think about it and whether you really want that and what that's going to add to you in your life. And don't get me wrong, like, it's not all about save. I think financial planning, and what I always emphasize to my clients, is about getting that balance, because you work really hard, obviously, where your money comes from now. Enjoy it whilst you can, but also think about your future self. Because a lot of the time, the question is, what if I was to die tomorrow? Like, you want to make sure you enjoy it. But the flip side of that is, what if you were to live too long? Like, you don't want to be working when you're 80. I mean, it's not sure what jobs are available when you're 80, but do you see what I mean? So you've got to think about both sides of the coin at all times. And I think it is about getting that balance. And spending your money where you want to and getting that enjoyment from.
Good advice. One I've used in the past is pound aware. So if I'm going to buy something, if it's £50, I'm like, right, I'm going to wear that 50 times. And I use that in my head, which has worked for me. But not that I'm an expert. I just thought I'd put my 2 pence in.
Dave, like, no, this is worth it.
Okay, and obviously you're a mum of 2, and I love that you also include that sometimes in your LinkedIn posts and relate back to the children, which is lovely. What advice would you give to those with children? Because surely you have to plan a little bit different, you know, if you've got children as opposed to if you've not got any children. What advice would you give to those with children? They're
expensive. No, I think again, it's what you make of it, but I think childcare is the biggest factor when you've got particularly young children, like mine are 3 and coming up to 18 months. So I think childcare, but there are some schemes in the UK, and just making sure that you understand what's available to you, whether that's kind of tax-free childcare, which is one of the things I think they call it, whether it's the free funded hours. It's just really understanding what's available to you and maximising on those, really, I think actually is important. And also I like to think that, I mean, my daughter, my 18-month-old, she's my youngest client. And don't worry, I'm not telling everyone to go and get their kids into investments or whatever. But it's about starting the education at home around money. Because, again, like, so many children these days don't really understand the true value of money. And that's not their fault. But in their eyes, it's just a tap of a phone on a pad. It's just a kind of swipe of the card.
She's crazy these days.
Actually, the tangible effect of money is kind of lost now, which again is just how society shifted. But then that makes the conversations really hard because, well, mum just taps her card every time she wants to buy something. I'm thinking, no.
Yeah.
Like, my son loves doing it for me. I'm like, you do realise that's
don't get used to it
somewhere. Yeah. It's not just a piece of plastic that will is got an indefinite amount on it.
Yeah, but it's a good point. I think a lot of children will see a phone being tapped, and actually they won't even see it as money. They see it as the phone. Which is
magic. I think it'd be nice.
It would be great. Yeah, if you come across one, let me know. I'll have it. Okay, cool. Well, we're going to go into 10 quickfire questions, if it's okay with you now. Okay, so number 1, best piece of financial advice that you have ever received?
I've ever received. Start young.
Start young.
Yeah.
Good advice.
Compound interest is, honestly, it was like the join for the world or whichever one.
Yeah. No, good advice.
It works for you without you having to work.
Great. Number 2, the best part of your job?
Meeting people. I'm a people person. I love building relationships and getting to know people on a personal level, which obviously helps me and help them achieve their goals.
Great. And number 3, on the flip side, the worst part of your job?
Death. Obviously, I work with clients throughout the whole lifetime. I've had 2 clients, one elderly, one unfortunately had cancer, and that's just really tough. Because you do build those relationships with people. Yeah, really hard. Number 4, your favourite way to relax or unwind outside of work? When you've got 2 kids, it's hard. I was going to say, how do you do it? How do you fit it all in? Go and hide. I don't know. Just we enjoy our holidays where we can. Again, it's harder with 2 kids. And we try and have a bit of downtime once a year. So great, enjoy that. Great. Number 5, if you could go back and give your younger self a piece of advice, what would it be? Follow your dreams and don't feel like you have to fit into a box. Great. We've kind of touched upon this next one, but I'm going to go anyway. Number 6, can you recommend just one reliable source to get financial information? So if you were to just give one, what would it be? A financial advisor. Yeah, good answer. We'll go with that. We'll stick with that. Number 7, your morning routine. How does that look? It's fully led by the kids, so whatever time they wake up, followed by what they're doing under for breakfast, and then somehow get them out of the house after they've given me every excuse under the sun. So very different to what it was 3 years ago, but I wouldn't have it either way. Surely you've got to squeeze a coffee in somewhere. I'm not a big coffee drinker. You're not? No. Controversial. No. Controversial. I feel like I do sometimes just need it because of night sleep or lack of night sleep. Yeah. Number 8, what is a personal finance goal that you've set for yourself, if you don't mind sharing? No, not at all. Again, I think also, this may be a quick fire, but I'm not. I know. I need to reword it. For me, I think in goals in different time scales, so short, medium, longer term. So I guess in the shorter term, it's make sure that we can carry on enjoying our family holidays. Like I said, something that me and my husband enjoyed before kids, and we really want to try and make sure that we carry on doing them as much as we can. Then medium term would be helping the kids through their lifetime, and then longer term is retiring, sipping a nice cocktail without children around on a beach, hot somewhere. I'm picturing it now. Sounds good to me. Sounds good. Number 9, what is your favourite money related book? I'm not a big reader. Dyslexic, so I find it really so there's one on my desk there that I'm still working through.
But yeah, I'm the same. So, podcast?
One. Well, I mean, I like podcasts, but I do listen to like more kind of chilled out podcasts. 'Cause it's like just switching off from the world for a little bit.
The After School Club was the correct answer,
Oh,
by the way.
sorry. Yeah, I really missed
I'm
that
joking.
too, didn't I?
Okay, and finally, number 10. What would you say from this episode, from everyone listening, you know, within the education sector, if you could just leave them with one takeaway from today, what would that be?
Understand your pension as much as possible. Now, that's really generic, isn't it? Now, what I always say at the end of all my seminars, again, referring back to the teacher's pension, but it's similar for all scenarios, is first of all, the teacher's pension online only. So make sure you're registered online for the teacher's pension scheme, and also make sure you use a personal email address, because if you're using your school email address and you were to leave school and you forgot the password, it's really hard to track that down. Then also check your service history, because your service history plays into all the calculations about what your pension benefits are going to be. And the amount of incorrect service history I've come across.
What do you mean by service history?
So what schools you're at what time. So for example, you were at school A between this year and that year, and then you went to school B. But there might be periods where you're at the same school and the service history, because there's the service history of the teacher's pension scheme, that might be incorrect. And we need to get them updated, because the teacher's pension don't know that it's incorrect. Only you do. And just to touch on that, in case people do that and notice that they've got incorrect or missing service, is they have to go back to the school where it's missing, and they have to upload, I think it's like a TR28 form, to make sure that that's adjusted. Now, it's better to do, I always say, check your service history and check it periodically as well. So do it every couple of years, and do it particularly if you are changing from different schools, that's different local authorities. And also get it done, because the updating of that service history shouldn't take a couple of months. So you don't want to do it like 2 months before you want to retire, because it could kind of slow down your retirement and getting all that ready. And like I said, it plays into your calculations, so you want to make sure it's correct. You've paid into it, you need the calculations to be correct. So they're the main two takeaways. And I guess the third one as well is kind of updating your nomination form, so your death benefit form. And you can teacher's pension, you can do that online. Quite often, people, when they join the teacher's pension scheme, is when they were newly qualified. They might have nominated their best friend, and now they're married with like 2 kids. Like, their husband's like, why is Catherine getting my death in service? So you can just update that on a teacher's pension website. It will override whatever's there. Because it's only recently the teacher's pension have gone fully online and electronic, it might not be showing anyone, but there will be someone in the background. But either way, just update it. Even if you think it's the same person, you know you've updated it to that person. Peace of mind.
Amazing.
Yeah, not very quick.
Amazing, but very useful. Very useful. No, look, it's been really, really informative. Very, very useful, I'm sure, for a lot of people listening. So thank you so much. And also, thank you for being so friendly, bubbly, and kind with it, because you can really see that come through. So thank you so much for your time. Appreciate it. Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.